Navigating compliance. ISF filing for goods under embargo or trade sanctions. ISF filing and trade sanctions. ISF filing for goods subject to embargo or trade sanctions entails adhering to specific regulatory requirements established by U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, to enforce trade restrictions and promote national security interests. Disclosure of embargo-related information. Importers must disclose embargo-related information in the ISF filing, including details about the origin, destination, and intended use of the goods, to facilitate CBP's assessment of compliance with trade sanctions. Compliance with licensing requirements. Importers may be required to obtain licenses or permits from relevant government agencies, such as the Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, to import goods subject to embargo or trade sanctions, ensuring lawful trade and national security objectives. Adherence to export control regulations. ISF filing for embargoed goods involves complying with export control regulations administered by agencies such as the Bureau of Industry and Security, BIS, which regulate the export of sensitive items to embargoed destinations. Restricted party screening. Importers should conduct restricted party screening to identify individuals, entities, or countries subject to trade sanctions or embargoes and ensure compliance with legal requirements, including those related to ISF filing. Documentation requirements. Importers must maintain accurate and complete documentation related to ISF filing for embargoed goods, including commercial invoices, shipping documents, and export licenses, to demonstrate compliance with customs regulations and trade sanctions. Advance notification to CBP. Importers may be required to provide advance notification to CBP regarding the importation of goods subject to embargo or trade sanctions, enabling CBP to conduct risk assessments and enforce regulatory compliance. Risk mitigation measures. Importers should implement risk mitigation measures, such as due diligence reviews, compliance audits, and internal controls, to ensure the lawful importation of embargoed goods and mitigate the risk of penalties or enforcement actions from CBP. CBP enforcement of trade sanctions. CBP actively enforces trade sanctions by monitoring import transactions, conducting audits, and imposing penalties on importers found to violate embargo-related regulations or ISF filing requirements. Penalties for non-compliance. Importers who fail to comply with ISF filing requirements for embargoed goods may face penalties, fines, or other enforcement actions from CBP, highlighting the importance of legal compliance and due diligence in international trade. Collaboration with regulatory agencies. Importers can collaborate with regulatory agencies, such as CBP, OFAC, and BIS, to obtain guidance, clarify regulatory requirements, and ensure compliance with trade sanctions and export control regulations. Training and education. Importers and customs brokers can benefit from training and education programs on trade sanctions, export controls, and ISF filing requirements offered by government agencies, industry associations, and professional organizations. Industry best practices. Importers should adopt industry best practices for compliance with trade sanctions and ISF filing requirements, including conducting risk assessments, establishing compliance protocols, and maintaining open communication with regulatory authorities. Due diligence in supply chain management. Importers should exercise due diligence in supply chain management by vetting suppliers, conducting transaction reviews, and verifying the legality of imported goods to prevent inadvertent violations of trade sanctions or embargoes. Technology solutions. Importers can leverage technology solutions, such as automated screening software and compliance management systems, to enhance due diligence, streamline ISF filing processes, and mitigate the risk of non-compliance with trade sanctions. Industry collaboration and advocacy. Importers can collaborate with industry peers, trade associations, and advocacy groups to advocate for regulatory reforms, promote transparency in trade sanctions enforcement, and facilitate compliance with ISF filing requirements. Government outreach and guidance. CBP and other regulatory agencies provide outreach and guidance to importers on ISF filing requirements for embargoed goods, including informational resources, webinars, and advisory services, to support compliance and facilitate lawful trade. Continuous monitoring and improvement. Importers should continuously monitor changes in trade sanctions, export controls, and ISF filing requirements, adjusting compliance strategies and internal controls to adapt to evolving regulatory landscapes and mitigate compliance risks. Importer accountability and responsibility. Importers bear ultimate accountability and responsibility for compliance with ISF filing requirements and trade sanctions, requiring proactive measures to ensure legal compliance, uphold national security objectives, and maintain integrity in international trade. ISF filing for goods subject to embargo or trade sanctions entails adherence to specific regulatory requirements to promote national security interests, ensure legal compliance, and facilitate the lawful importation of restricted goods. By understanding these requirements, importers can navigate regulatory complexities, mitigate compliance risks, and uphold the integrity of the importation process. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more informative videos on customs regulations and international trade practices.